Welcome to the Pharmacy Frontiers podcast. We're excited to come to you today with Dylan Hodges on his path to pharmacy. Let me remind everyone that the Pharmacy Frontiers podcast is available for streaming on your favorite podcast streaming app, whether it be Apple, Podbean, Spotify, or YouTube. The Pharmacy Frontiers podcast is a podcast dedicated to the pharmacy profession. The comments and opinions shared today are those of myself and our guests, are not official statements of the MPA, Mercy, or the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Pharmacy. I'm Daniel Good. I'll serve as your host today. And today I'm so pleased to welcome one of the students from the University of Missouri, Kansas City at the MSU campus, Dylan Hodges, who is a P4 student and a PharmD candidate preparing to graduate in May.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Good. I'm really looking forward to being here today.
Well, thanks for joining us. I know that you have a busy time putting together your final rotations and getting ready to take care of patients and others, but I think that you have a compelling story I'd like to be able to ask you about and kind of share with our listeners, because I think that there's some good lessons learned there that we can translate to others. So kind of start me at the beginning. Is how the journey that you got to this, where we're at now in your final year of pharmacy school?
Yeah, so I had a bit of a non-traditional path into pharmacy school. So I, after high school, didn't really think that I wanted to pursue higher education. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. So I actually joined the Air Force. I was in the Air Force. I did one term of duty in the Air Force. I was an air traffic controller. So not the really flashy position you've seen on TVs and movies where I was in the tower talking to planes as they land or take off. I was in a dark room with a big radar scope. And so I was talking to planes that were hundreds of miles away, communicating with pilots. And so I did that for a couple of years. And I got out. And I wasn't sure if that was something I wanted to do forever, but it was a lucrative career in the civilian sector. But unfortunately, it's very hard to get into. So the FAA has forced retirement. There's only a few centers across the country because you're talking to planes that are 500 to 1,000 miles away from you. And so unfortunately, Minneapolis, Dallas, Memphis, those were the closest to my home here in Missouri. So while I was waiting for one of those positions to open up, I started working out at a gym with a high school buddy of mine who was starting a CrossFit gym. That was really popular at that time. The gym grew to a size that he could no longer work his day job and manage it. His day job was at a pharmacy. And he said, you know what would be a really good So anyway, I was able to go ahead and jump in for my friend take his job over at the pharmacy. He got me in with the pharmacist there, and I started in durable medical equipment. At the time that pharmacy did a lot of oxygen concentrators, Hoyer lifts, hospital beds, things like that. And so I started delivering those, going into patients' homes. And after about a year, that pharmacy underwent an ownership change. As part of that and being retained with the new ownership group, they wanted me to transition into a technician role. With the transition to the technician role, I learned a lot about the job, interacted with a lot of providers' offices. One of those interactions was with my future wife. She's an RN at a family practice, and so I interacted with her a lot, and that's where I met her. And then, after a year and a half, 2 years of doing that, I decided, what the heck, I should really go ahead and move down to the other end of the counter and be the pharmacist if I'm going to make this a career. And so I saw the way that the pharmacist there was really a pillar of that local community. I love the way it made me feel to help people, day in and day out. And so it just seemed like a really rewarding career. And it made me want to go into it. And so I had some excellent mentors who were able to connect me with the right people and get me started on that journey, knocked out some prerequisites, and got into pharmacy school.
Fantastic. What a great journey. And you've been able to balance that time in pharmacy school with working full-time and raising a family. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's been hectic, right? I think, I've had a lot of good opportunities in my life to interact with people who are really good time managers and were able to give me some tips. I would say of all the things, one of the most beneficial things for me, honestly, was my time in the Air Force. So when I left as an 18-year-old out of high school, I did not have the tools to to succeed as a graduate student or a professional level student. But my time in the Air Force really taught me a lot about time management. And so I think I developed a lot there. And then really, just as part of being part of a family and a non-traditional student, your work ethic and your outlook on work and assignments and projects is very different than when you're a young student. So I think that perspective was hugely beneficial to me to be able to manage my time and be very efficient. When you have 2 kids and a wife and you're trying to fit this in with your job, I was just really purposeful. And I think that was the biggest thing, was just being very purposeful at building in the family time and those events so that you're able to get those in, and then you can just sprinkle in, the study and everything where you can. Everybody's different. I think every student finds their style and finds their niche, as opposed to, whether I need to spend 3 hours to digest this unit of material. Maybe there's another student out there who only needs an hour. Some of us are visual learners. Some of us hear it. I had students who listen to, recordings of lectures on their way commuting to and from school. And there's all these different things out there. But yeah, just finding what works for me. And really, once I got into a groove, it was just kind of natural. It really was. School was a joy after getting in and getting into a routine. It really became just the norm, and I enjoyed every day of it. The students, as I was a non-traditional, a little bit older, they really kept me young. All the other kids in my class, they may be 10 years younger, but they really kept me, striving to be the best and competitive. And they taught me a lot of the new age lingo and stuff that, like, my 12-year-old's throwing around. So it helped a lot.
So could you hold your own on the micro ping pong table? Were you able to hold your own in the ping pong table there in the Brick City?
I was actually really fortunate, and maybe this is one of the situations where my added years and wisdom were beneficial. But I must say, I was able to win the tiny table tennis tournament my first, second, and third year in pharmacy school. That's coming up in April. I'm not sure if I can swing it with my rotation schedule to get back there to be a 4-time winner, but I did hold my own. I was pretty competitive.
Oh my gosh, I do think that we're going to have to do what we can to get you back there to defend your title. So what would you do different then? If you had a way to go back and do this journey again, is there anything you do different? Or is there any lessons learned that you say, I'd tweak this? Or
really, I would say the one big thing would be the pharmacy experience was hugely beneficial as far as my non-traditional path to school. Having been working in a pharmacy for 4 or 5 years, even before I started undergrad, that paid huge dividends going into pharmacy school. I would certainly urge any student to have some exposure, because even things that I took for granted at the time, brand and generic names, drug classes, things that you would have to learn later if you didn't have that previous experience. I had a huge leg up on some other competitors. I would say maybe if I could do anything differently, because I really feel like my path cumulatively is what led me to have success later. So I wouldn't change a lot of things. But one thing, if I could do one thing differently, it would be the help of the support system that I had to get where I'm at. Especially having a family and a job, it's hard to juggle all these things, but it's hard too on the support system around you that is facilitating your ability to go learn and do these things. So one of the things I wish I had done a better job early on was really making a point to show that appreciation to all the members of my support system, my wife, my kids, my parents, my in-laws, everybody, to make sure that they know every single day how and accomplishing the things I want to accomplish. So that's one thing. If I had to look back on one thing that I could do different, would be being more purposeful at the beginning, and more frequent at showing the appreciation for all the people around me that helped me do it.
Fair enough. Well, let me give you a minute to give a shout out to your wife, who obviously has been one of the anchors in the family. Give a little shout out to her.
Oh gosh, I can't say enough good. So my wife, shout out to Shannon. She has just been, I can't explain to you how much easier she's made this journey. So we've been married almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in September. We have 2 kids, and you can imagine. I worked full time all through undergrad, and then I maintained 25 or 30 hours through pharmacy school as long as I could until I started rotations, and that leaves a lot of time in there where I'm commuting, where I'm not able to get kids ready in the morning, drop them off at school, or pick them up, take them to baseball practice, basketball practice, things like this. And so it really put a huge burden on my wife to be able to do a lot of these things that we signed up to do together, and things that I was helping with before. And so she's been just absolutely amazing as far as keeping me grounded. There's plenty of times where nursing, her insight was able to help me in therapy and school as well. So it's not like I was always trying to teach her tidbits of pharmacology. I was able to help out some, but she helped me a ton too, in getting through school too. There was a lot of times where her insight was hugely valuable. But oh yeah, just all of the things. I mean, that go with raising a family and tons of responsibilities, that she was able to pull her weight and then some. To help get us to this point. So I look forward to being able to reward her in the coming months. We're just a few months away from getting some of that time back where I can start paying her back.
And she completed another degree as well during this time, right?
Yes, sir. So my wife was she's been an LPN for it was almost 10 years, and then a year ago she completed an LPN to RN bridge program at Cox College. So she started that a year before. And so, yeah, while I was we kind of had a busy period. So I have a now 2-year-old, Brooklyn turned 2 October 7th. And so all in this one window where I was a P2 student, my wife was going through an LPN to RN bridge program, going to graduate in December. We had our daughter in October. And so, yeah, it was a pretty hectic time. There were plenty of long nights spent studying and working some things out while we were both trying to accomplish our dreams. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. It certainly made us stronger. And yeah, we both were able to accomplish a lot going through a stressful time.
Well, you have an amazing wife, you have an amazing family. It looks like maybe there's a vacation coming here, maybe this summer, to celebrate your accomplishment.
That is certainly much needed and definitely in the works. So we're trying to swing that.
Very good. Well, I know you're just a P4 student yourself now, right? I hate to say only, but you're a PharmD candidate, ready to enter in the world and take on patient care and stomp out disease and pestilence. But what kind of a recommendation or advice do you have for some of these other students that are thinking about being non-traditional, maybe some that are coming back to the workforce from another profession? What kind of advice do you offer to that next group?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely go for your dreams, chase what you want to do. I've been in a position where I've interacted with a lot of people in the profession, both throughout my first 3 years of school, but especially on rotation. You interact with other professionals who are doing this every day. And one message that I have consistently been told, you only get one go around, in this life. And so you really want to cherish every opportunity that you have to accomplish things, to do things, because you'll certainly regret the opportunities that you didn't take, more than, 1,000 things that you did do and that you made a mistake. So I would say definitely go chase your dreams. Specifically, I had one great mentor who was a relief pharmacist when I was still a technician, who came in and filled in, and he had an absolutely crazy path to pharmacy school. He was a brick mason in St. Louis, and he started doing that when he was 14 years old. He was a brick mason all the way up until he was in his mid 40s. I don't remember if he was 40, somewhere around 45. And, one day he came home, he was sore, he was tired, he was beat up. And he said, "This is making an old man out of me real quick," and he went back to pharmacy school at 45, got through, started working, and he was an older pharmacist at the time I met him. He was in his low 70s then, working relief. Shout out to Dave Holdenreed, Mr. Dave Holdenreed, and he really urged me to go back. At that time I was in my late 20s. Like I said, I was already with my wife, and we had our 12-year-old already, and was like, it would just be so hard for me to go back to school and to ask her to take on a huge financial burden. And of course, time and all these commitments for me to go back and do this. And it would put us in a tough spot for a couple of years while I do this. And he was really instrumental in urging me to take that chance and go do it. And I really appreciate him for doing that. So I would just tell all this potential students out there, go for it, chase your dreams. You can do anything that you set your mind to. You really will get out of it what you put into it. I think I went back and I definitely thought at the time, it's been 10 years since I did calculus or trig or some of these prerequisites that I was going to have to knock out before even getting into pharmacy school, organic chemistry. And I knew that would be a challenge, but maybe I had to spend a little bit more time on the front end than some 18-year-olds who had just recently taken that. But it certainly paid off, and it's been an incredibly rewarding career. And I'm just getting started in it, so I can't imagine what I'll feel like in 20 years, but it's already been so rewarding. So go for it. Absolutely go for it.
That is great advice, Dylan. Thank you for sharing that. And by golly, I look forward to seeing your career grow and work your way through the process there. You are an inspiration to others. I'm very impressed with what you've done so far. And I hate to take up any more time of your day now. I know you're on rotation now, taking care of patients. So thanks for joining us today. I look forward to getting updates from you as you progress through your career. And for our listeners today on the Pharmacy Frontiers podcast, I just want to remind everyone that they can bookmark this and they can favorite it so that they can get all the updates from the Pharmacy Frontiers podcast in order to make it available for them on their favorite listening device. And remember, until next time, that it's a good day to be in pharmacy.